Friday night, the end of the beginning. So I know this pandemic has been hard for so many people. I was on the radio last night in London, and I heard the desperation, the darkness, the pain, and it's so concerning. And last night we talked about taming the death dragon. And tonight we're going to talk about not feeding the death dragon so that he or she gets out of control. We're going to talk about suicide prevention. And this is a very serious topic, and we're going to have a serious talk about it. What I often tell my patients is suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary feeling or problem. And I am not above using guilt. I'm just not. Guilt in many ways gets a bad rap. That we need some guilt. So we do the right things. And what I tell my patients, if they have children, if you kill yourself, you've just gifted your child a 500% increased risk of killing themselves. And I don't say that to make them feel bad. I just say that to get them outside of themselves. Because sometimes when we have suicidal thoughts, it's like our brain is in a tunnel and there's no windows and no doors. And all you see is your pain and freedom from pain, but you're completely missing the pain that act causes people who care about you. And you're often lying to yourself, saying they'll be better off without you, and they'll be better off with you having a healthy brain and a healthy mind. And that's possible. That's what we've seen on the top of my bookshelf. It's my first big best-selling book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. You're not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better, and I can prove it. So don't feed the death dragon. And let's talk about it. I have notes for this one. Calls to suicide hotlines in the pandemic are up 1,000%. So that is a 10-fold increase because of the desperation people feel. And it's sad, and I feel your pain. I read to you last night, my mom and dad made the paper, and then they made CBS and NBC. Elderly couple survives COVID-19. What a great story. I'm so happy about that. But there were dark nights when they were in the hospital and I couldn't visit them. And that was really painful. And painful for, a number of my team members and my own assistant when she was in Australia got COVID-19. And very stressful, very scary. At our clinics, we're getting more calls for suicidal thinking, suicidal action, suicidal behavior than I can ever remember in the 30 years Amen clinics have been in business. With the global pandemic, people are feeling helpless and hopeless. But we can help, and I'm going to try and help you tonight. It's really important if you're having thoughts like life isn't worth living that you seek help immediately. But you can also help yourself. More on that in a minute. It's why I write. I write because I love learning And I love sharing because I know this information can help you or someone you care about. So if you know someone who has been having suicidal thoughts or behavior, I want you to share this link with them. So suicide and mental health issues, mental health problems, which we call brain problems, contribute to suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar disorder, which is a disorder where people have normal feelings, and then they have periods where they're manic, where their thoughts go fast, they're terribly impulsive, they may spend money they don't have, become hypersexual, hyper-religious, sometimes even psychotic, where they lose touch with what's real and not real. They tend to talk fast, they don't need to sleep, and then it cycles either to normal or to depression, where they're sad. And because of their behavior, sometimes in a manic episode, they feel hopeless and they're at risk for hurting themselves. People with addictions, people have attention deficit disorder because of the impulsivity that can go along. And again, it's why I'm not a fan of alcohol. Because alcohol, if you have dark thoughts and you drink, you might take the lid off the impulse control and act on those thoughts. So if you're having suicidal ideas, you need to throw the alcohol away, because when you keep it in the house and you drink, you then lose empathy for other people and you lose impulse control. According to one study I read, half the people who kill themselves did it when they were either drunk or high. And so having a clear mind so you can deal with this is just so incredibly important. So these mental health issues, especially when they're untreated, put you at risk. Our brain imaging work has taught us so much about the brains of people who have suicidal thoughts and behavior. I have scanned thousands of people who have had suicidal thoughts and suicidal actions. I actually published 2 studies, and what we see is low activity in the front part of the brain. So forethought, judgment, impulse control, organization, planning, empathy, learning from the mistakes you make. And it could be from a head injury, or it could be from some form of toxic exposure, or you inherited the vulnerability to bipolar disorder and addiction or depression. Often we see people who have problems in their left temporal lobe's underneath your temple and behind your eyes. And when I see that it's hurt, often from a head injury, mood instability, irritability, temper problems, some mild sensitivity or paranoia, and dark, evil, awful thoughts, either aggression towards someone else or aggression toward yourself. And we can help with that by repairing the temporal lobes and the frontal lobes. Sometimes the gear shifter in your brain works too hard and you just can't let go of the negative thoughts. And sometimes it's really too low in activity. So how do you counteract it? Well, one, if you're having those thoughts, it's an emergency. You need to talk to someone. I think that's really important because there's help. And just because you have those thoughts, it doesn't mean you're weird or you're that. A study from Washington State showed that 55% of the population at some point in their life had suicidal thoughts. And I remember when I went through a breakup 16 years ago. And I was just a wreck for 6 months, 7 months. And I would just get these random self-destructive thoughts. Now, I tell everybody if I died, I didn't do it. Likely my wife killed me. And she would then say, I deserved it. So it's not really been part of my journey. But even, someone who's trained, someone who I do a pretty good job of managing my mind, sometimes they creep in. And if you just get a random thought like that and you're drunk, you're much more likely to act out on that. All right, 10 ways to boost your brain and overcome suicidal thoughts. 1, you have to know why you're on the planet. Know your purpose. So this is so important. Whenever we evaluate someone at Amen Clinics, we always think about these 4 big circles. Biologically, so we're talking about the brain. Psychologically, your mind. We'll teach you about killing the ants in a minute. Socially, the people at greatest risk for suicide are those people who are lonely or disconnected from other people. But then there's this other really important circle. It's your spiritual circle, which is why the heck do you care? Why are you on the planet? What is your deepest sense of meaning and purpose? And often people kill themselves. That circle will be blank for them. And so I want to know what's your connection with God as you understand God, with the planet, our home, with the past, and for me it's my grandfather, and with the future. Again, for me it's my grandbabies. Why are you on the planet? And if you don't have purpose, that becomes your task to get purpose. And if you're tired of pursuing why you live, I see the comment, I want to know if your thyroid's okay. I want to know if your testosterone level is okay, because they're hormones that give us a zest for life. And sometimes, say, for example, people had a head injury, like a whiplash in a car accident, it hurt their pituitary gland, and they just don't have the hormones. They don't have the gasoline to sort of motivate the engine. Or, we're going to talk about it, they've completely worn out their pleasure centers. So number 1 is really work on your purpose. In my book, Feel Better Fast and Make It Last, I do a whole lesson on 5 minutes to know your purpose. Quickly. What's your name? Mine's Daniel. What do you love to do? So I love teaching. That's why we're doing this. I love making a difference in people's lives. I love serving my family. I got to cook tonight. I was so proud. Made a great salad. And in the pandemic, I learned how to cook salmon. I'm so proud of myself. I first time ever brined the salmon. So basically put it in salt water and cooked it on the stove, 6 minutes one side, 6 minutes the other side. Just tasted great. So who do you do that for? I did it for the people I love. So what's your name, Daniel? What do you love to do? Teach, help change people's lives. Who do you do it for? The people I love and the people I serve. What do they need from you? They need better brains and better lives. And how do they change? Well, they get a better brain and they get a better life, and then they pass it on to others. So as a result of what I do, I help people change their brains, change their lives, and they go on and change other people's lives. That's my purpose? So if you can just answer those 5 questions, what's your name? Hopefully you know that. What do you love to do? Like, what are you really good at? What do you think you are blessed at? Who do you do it for? What do those people want or need from you? And how do they change as a result of what you do? More on that in Feel Better Fast. 2, resilience is a skill you can learn. I love Dr. Marty Seligman. He's one of my heroes. He's just a great teacher. And Dr. Seligman found people who do not give up interpret pain differently than those people who give up. And so if you think of suicide as giving up, he says resilience, that when someone has pain or a setback, and there's all sorts of setbacks happening during this pandemic, from people losing their job, losing their business, losing their spouse. I predict 9 months from now, we're going to have a whole lot more babies because people were at home, and we're going to have a lot more divorces because people are like looking at each other and going, you know, this is not what I want. When you could go to work, you could sort of be in denial about a relationship that maybe not what you want. I'm not recommending that. There are ways to optimize your relationship, and we've talked about them. All right, people who are in pain or have a setback, whole bunch of people now. The people that are going to survive and thrive after this, they see the setback as temporary, limited, and changeable, that they have an influence on how this turns out. People who don't survive, who do not thrive, see the pain and the setback as permanent, pervasive, and the person has no control over it. So resilience, temporary, it is temporary. I did a podcast today. With Mitch Albom. Some of you will know Mitch. He's the author of Tuesdays with Morrie and The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. He's got a great new book called Finding Chica. And we talked about how this, and life is going to look different for 18 months, 2 years, maybe a little longer, but maybe not for the worse. Life is going to be different, but I totally have an impact on how I react to it. And I've been telling my staff since the pandemic started that I want us as an executive team to be proud of how we acted in September. So let's think not about the moment, but about all of the moments. So I want you, remember, resilience. Temporary pain is temporary, it's limited, it's changeable. People give up. They see pain as permanent, pervasive, and you have no control. So I want you just to listen to yourself and others and see how they explain the world to them. I want you to change your language and feelings around the situations you face and allow mistakes to be learning experiences rather than a final judgment on your self-worth. Okay, number 3, strengthen impulse control. This is so important. Suicide is often a permanent solution to a temporary feeling or problem. So you want to engage in strategies that boost the front part of your brain. A higher protein, lower simple carbohydrate diet will do that because it helps to balance your blood sugar, better blood flow to your brain. Exercise can help, and supplements such as green tea, rhodiola, ginseng. At BrainMD, we actually make a supplement called Focus and Energy, which is really made to get better blood flow to your brain. And then I want you to limit low-value dopamine-producing activities. What does that mean? So let me digress just for a minute. Deep in your brain, you have two centers that are involved in pleasure and motivation and drive. And the neurotransmitter dopamine powers them. The neurotransmitter dopamine powers your pleasure centers. And so you never want to damage your pleasure centers. You never want to damage or wear out your pleasure centers. Because if you damage or wear out your pleasure centers, you're more likely to have suicidal thoughts. With me? Two pleasure centers called the nucleus accumbens. They're part of a big structure called your basal ganglia. But two centers deep in your brain respond to the neurotransmitter dopamine. And when you have an addiction to alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, over time, it wears them out. And then you just don't feel anything at all. Some of you know I was in Justin Bieber's docuseries Seasons because I've been his doctor. And worldwide fame wears out your pleasure centers, which is one of the reasons he used all the drugs that he used. And so what are things that wear out your pleasure centers? Alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamines, caffeine, nicotine, too much television. Streaming has gone way up. Pornography, video games. And we did a podcast, Hannah and I did a podcast this week with Dr. Lisa Stroman, who's an attorney, a psychologist who used to work with the FBI. She has something called Digital Citizens Academy, and she just horrified me because she said 8, 9, 10-year-old boys are being addicted to pornography. So I've known for a long time that they were addicted to video games, and I've been opposed to the wholesale use of video games for developing minds. I'm still opposed to it. But if you add pornography on that in an underdeveloped brain, it's a real problem. Why? Because that is going to flood their brain with this feel-good neurotransmitter dopamine, and ultimately it's going to deaden their pleasure centers. And so they will need more and more to begin to feel anything at all. And how would they ever have a healthy relationship when their mind is filled with something that's not real, that's highly stimulating, and I am just not a fan. You need to protect your children's brains from the easy access to things they have no business seeing. And a lot of parents are afraid. They're like, oh, they're just kids. This is devastating. And I've actually had to send kids away to treatment centers because when the parents took away the technology, they got violent. Okay. Scary movies is another one of those things. It's a low-value dopamine activity. So these are things that dump dopamine. They're like a boom. And so I teach my patients how to drip it. So you just get like a little bit all the time. Sunshine does that. Vitamin D does it. Exercise, meditation, yoga, pleasurable music, cooking for my family, sitting around the dinner table where everyone is not in a hurry. Every day for 30 minutes, I torture my niece and we play table tennis. And her backhand is getting so good. I am so proud of her. I mean, doing things for people I love is dripping dopamine. All right, number 4. Eliminate the ants, the automatic negative thoughts that steal your happiness. So many of my suicidal patients, they're infested with negative thoughts that they have never challenged. And what I want you to do is whenever you feel sad or mad or nervous or out of control, talk back to the thoughts in your head. And some of the common thoughts that go with suicide is nobody loves me, nobody needs me, everything is terrible, things will never get better. And ultimately, those are lies. And if you never question your thoughts, you believe them 100%. And then you act as if they are true. And I tell my patients, please don't believe everything you think. A negative look from someone else may mean nothing more than they're constipated. You don't know. And they should have taught second graders this. We actually have a high school course called Brain Thrive by 25. We have a whole lesson on how to kill the ants. And in independent research, our course has been found to decrease drug, alcohol, and tobacco use, decrease depression, and improve self-esteem. So it is never too early to teach people how to kill the ants. 5 is avoid substance abuse. We've been talking about that. A large-scale study by researchers at Portland University found that about 22% of people who died by suicide were legally intoxicated at their time of death. I saw another study where it was 50%. Substances like alcohol and marijuana, lower activity in the frontal lobes. And so you heard me say, lower activity in the frontal lobes, more impulsivity, more bad judgment, more bad decisions. And what did I say? A lot of people have suicidal thoughts because of the pain they were in. My wife, Tana, talks about when she had thyroid cancer and they took her thyroid away. They radiated her thyroid and then didn't give her any thyroid right away because that was the treatment at the time. She sort of hoped a truck would hit her and kill her because she just didn't want to live anymore. But when they replaced her thyroid, she was better. And so if you are suffering, it's so important to know why. But if she goes, I wish a truck would hit me, and then she got drunk or she got high, she's much more likely to give in to the impulse than a rational, non-polluted brain. I hope that makes sense. Number 6, connect, even during isolation. During quarantine, it's more important than ever. Yes, we have to be physically distant. We absolutely do not need to be emotionally distant. Reach out with Facebook, Zoom, Instagram, FaceTime. I make it a point to connect with my children, with my grandchildren, with people at work. Who should you be connecting with? And if you have trouble with relationships, How to Win Friends and Influence People, if you've never read it by Dale Carnegie, it's sort of like the handbook of relationships. If people don't want to talk to you, it may be every time you talk to them, you never ask them how they are, you never listen to what's going on in their life. And I have a number of people like that in my life. I call and they don't say, hey, how's it going? How are the clinics during this time? How are you feeling? How are you doing with your parents being in the hospital? If it's only one-sided, no. That's not okay. Support networks, church. Saddleback, I know, has thousands of small groups people can join, or other church group therapy can help. Online therapy has just been so good. 7, recognize if you're getting stuck on negative thoughts. That's where your gear shifter in your brain works too hard. And once you get a thought in your head more than 3 times, I want you to physically get up and go do something else. Physically get up and go do something else. When you really feel stuck, write it out. I'm just a huge fan of journaling. Write down what you're stuck on, and then write out what you can do about it and what you can't do about it. And natural antidepressants, exercise, bright light exposure. Actually, oops, just dropped my computer. That's not good. This is my Bright Minds therapy lamp that you can get at BrainMD. I actually use it to light the set. It's pretty cool. 30 minutes in the morning, 20 or 30 minutes in the morning has been shown to decrease seasonal affective disorder or winter depressions. It's been shown to help your mood, your focus, your energy, and your sleep. So bright light therapy can be really good for you. Certain foods, combining tryptophan-containing foods like eggs, turkey, with healthy carbohydrates like sweet potatoes. So a sweet potato hash with eggs and turkey can actually help your mood be better. And then supplements. Recently I talked about Happy Saffron. We also have one called Serotonin Mood Support, omega-3 fatty acids. All of those things can help your mood and help you shift better. 8, and I've been watching some of the comments, find motivation for the future. So get your brain out of the pain right now, and what could it be? We have an exercise called the 1-page miracle. On one piece of paper, write down what you want: relationships, work, money, physical, emotional, spiritual health. So those 6 areas, write down what you want, and then ask yourself every day, is my behavior getting me what I want? So you can take these, 1, 2, 3 months of isolation and you can feel bad, or you can get something done. Like I talked to one of my patients and he was struggling with his son. And I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be good to just take April and fix your relationship with your son? And then I gave him very specific suggestions on how to do that. Focus. This is 9, focus on responsibility toward others, really important. Because when you get suicidal, you get in this tunnel that has no windows and no doors. And so think about, what do your kids need? Your pets need? What does your family need? How can you connect and be purposeful toward other people? And 10, if none of this is working, you need to see somebody. And Amen Clinics, our call center is busy. We're here for you if you're struggling with loneliness, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, or suicidal ideation. And you don't have to wait for the panic attack to be over before getting help. During these uncertain times, mental health is more important than others. Waiting to get treatment is likely to make the symptoms worse over time. And in our 8 clinics, we're still scanning, but most of our work is virtual. And a lot of our doctors just love this. because you don't have to fight the traffic. I have a clinic in Encino, north of Los Angeles, and in Orange County, and the traffic here can be brutal. But, you know, it's just like we're connected. So we're doing more telehealth than ever before. So let me summarize. Having suicidal thoughts is not uncommon. A lot of people at some point in their life have had suicidal thoughts. Now, acting it out, either with self-harm or serious suicidal behavior, that's a sign of help, that you need help, that something is going on, likely in your brain, that can be fixed. Remember, I said it's a permanent solution to a temporary feeling. I've been a psychiatrist for a very long time, and I've treated many suicidal patients. And if you can get them through the crisis, they're often grateful, more often than not grateful, that they realized it was a temporary feeling. I want you to think about other people. And the lie that you tell yourself, the and, is they'll be better off without me. The truth is your pain's over and theirs continues, often for the rest of their lives. And if you hate them, and sometimes suicide is like that you hate people and you want to hurt them, and this is how you do it. And I'm not a fan of that's cruel behavior. I believe life is a gift, and I know people suffer. I mean, I really know people suffer. But doing the right things, the whole idea behind my book, The End of Mental Illness, is these aren't mental illnesses. They're brain health issues that steal your mind. And if you've never looked at your brain or really worked on optimizing the physical functioning of your brain, then you actually don't know how good potentially you could feel. Leave a comment or question. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you need help or you know someone that needs help, call us. Go to amenclinics.com, and the phone number's there, or you can fill out a form. We would be happy to talk with you. Have an awesome night.